Just want to thank everybody that's in the room attending this session. We have an amazing speaker with us today. Just going to introduce him real quick. As the founder of the fathering figure movement, Reggie has made his mission, Reggie has made it his mission to change the global narrative about present active fathers. Therefore, the mission is to encourage, empower, and uplift all men in their journey through being a father or a father figure. So right now, we just want to take the time to welcome Mr. Reggie George, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it on over to him. I'm going to let you do your thing, man. Thank you.
Man, I appreciate it, Doc, and I appreciate everybody in attendance, man. I'm grateful to the Man and Me Summit, man. This is a huge platform. This is a huge deal for men especially, but I think is a huge deal for our communities in general. So again, I appreciate everybody for jumping on. I apologize for being a little bit late, had some technical difficulties, man, but we'll jump right into it. Again, my name is Reggie George. I am the founder of the Father Figure Movement, which is a movement about empowering and uplifting and encouraging all fathers and father figures. And I want to be specific when I say father figures, because it's just not about biological fathers. I'm a husband of 20 years, man. I'm the father of a beautiful set of 15-year-old twins, Kennedy and Camden. Barbershop and salon owner out in the DFW Metroplex area. Speaker, like I said, founder of the Father Figure Movement, Father Figure Apparel, Father Figure Podcast, everything Father Figure. But the reason why we're here is because in uplifting fathers and father figures, there always has to be a message. So I'm just here as one of those messengers. The movement itself was created and started out of adversity, and most things are. Most people have a testimony or something that triggers the space that they are in. And for me and my family, that was a May in 2019, May of 2019. One of my twins, who were at the time, were 13 years old. My wife and I received a call that one of the girls had been stabbed in the head with a pair of scissors in her temple by a young man in school, by a 15-year-old little boy. And as you can imagine, anybody, whoever's on this call, as you can imagine, the emotions and the surprise that my wife and I both got or were going through when we received that call. It actually came from our other twin, Kennedy. Camden is the one who was stabbed. But I was at my shop, stripping my floors. My wife had just gotten off work. So we rushing, we raging, both of us. But you can imagine as a father, and again, this has a lot to do with the movement, but you can imagine as a father, the things that are racing through my head, not only the safety and the well-being of my baby, but to have to hear that she was assaulted by and stabbed by a young man, a boy. So as we get to our destination at the time, which was the hospital, my wife had made it to the school, where by the time she made it, the paramedics had been called. My baby had passed out. My other daughter was, again, she was shocked and in shock from having to see her sister assaulted in the cafeteria of the school. But as we make it to the hospital, we are told that, again, it is a puncture wound that had punctured her skull, punctured an artery, and it had caused a couple of blood clots on her brain. So therefore, they care flighted her to a children's hospital here in Dallas-Fort Worth, Cook's Children's, and shout out to Cook's. They immediately air flighted her to Cook's Children's Hospital here in the DFW Metroplex, where they immediately had to do an emergency brain surgery. They had to try and remove 2 blood clots from her brain. And in the midst of that surgery, it caused her to have a massive stroke, which essentially paralyzed and shut down the entire right side of her body. And you know, as parents, and especially as a father, you have to understand that those things have a different effect on the psyche of what you think about society. And in the midst of everything going on, man, I have my other daughter, who is essentially, like I say, she is in literal shock, having to deal with the sight of watching her sister pass out, watching the blood in the cafeteria, having to deal with her sister being care flighted, having to deal with the fact that now her sister is in emergency brain surgery. So kind of fast forwarding, you know, she comes out of her surgery, and we have the neurosurgeon, which we find out later is one of the best neurosurgeons in the country. This neurosurgeon tells us that my daughter's brain is beat up, is swollen. He had to call in another neurosurgeon to control the bleeding, control the swelling. And at that point, one of the most horrific things that I ever heard was he told me that our daughter was minute to minute. And in the midst of getting that report, reality sets in. Like, this is really not a nightmare. This is really happening. Like, again, I had driven my kids to school every morning since they were in kindergarten. And this was a Monday that was no different. All I did was drop them off at school, and you know, it's 7 a.m. and then at 7 p.m. we're in emergency brain surgery. So at that point, my wife and I, my family, our village, we are faith-based people. So we, you know, of course, we begin to pray. We begin to ask God for healing and to let her make it. But she was essentially put in the ICU, where she was fighting for her life. Like I said, the right side of her body was completely paralyzed. She couldn't speak. You know, she had tubes coming out of her brain, and a feeding tube, and a trach, and, you know, just the worst of the worst when it comes to having to see your child battling in an ICU. At that point, of course, we are mentally dealing with the fact that she's in the ICU. But as a father, my brain automatically goes into revenge mode. It goes into vengeance mode. It goes into, like, who is this boy? Where is this boy? Because as any father can imagine, like, you there's no way you can try and rationalize a 15-year-old little boy attacking your daughter with a pair of scissors. But of course, being reactionary at that point means that I have to say, do I want to be locked up? Do I want to be away from my babies right now, away from my wife, away from my family? And that's a hard choice to make as a man. That's a hard choice to make as a father. And, you know, I get people ask me every day, like, Reggie, how do you do it? Are you better than me? Or I'm like, no, I'm really not. I'm hoping that every man, every father, and every father figure would make that same decision when it comes to staying by your child's side. But as the days go on, you know, Camden starts to get better. She starts to get more responsive. She starts to kind of acknowledge who is in the room, because we don't know if you know what's going on is because of the stroke, because of the damage to her brain, because of the sedation. We don't know any of that stuff. So we're starting to get daily victory. She's starting to get better uh, from the sense of being alert, not better from the sense of fighting for her life, because she was in the ICU for 8 or 9 days. But as she started to fight and started to progress, again, we started to have to hear about the young man. We started to have to hear about the legal aspects, and actually what happened. We had to figure out, was it a scuffle, or was it some ongoing beef, or was it, why would you attack my daughter with a pair of scissors, essentially almost killing her? So she was eventually moved from the ICU to a regular room on the way to a rehab unit. Again, she still hadn't talked, she couldn't walk, she couldn't move anything on the right side of her body. But about this time, my wife and I had to start showing up to legal proceedings um, to see if this boy would be, charged with aggravated assault, attempted murder, whatever it may be. But one of the more difficult things that I had to do as a father was show up to a courtroom and look at a boy who attacked my daughter, essentially attacked both of my daughters, because that's what it boiled down to. We figured out during the proceeding that he actually attempted to assault Kennedy first, and then Camden came in as the protector, and he stabbed her in the head in the cafeteria. But as we go through these legal proceedings, and they're asking, how is Cam, and they're speaking on the charges, on the assault. Um, I wanted to know as a father, like, what makes a young man premeditatedly say, look, I am going to approach these two girls with a pair of scissors. And I don't, we can't really validate what the intent was, but I know the intent was to harm them. Not necessarily, I can't verify whether the intent was to kill them or, cause as much damage as he did, but I know his intent was to have ill will. So I wanted to know what makes a young man get to that place where you can't see that, first and foremost, these are young women, and secondly, how do you get in a space where you want to be that violent? And the first time we went to court, I kind of saw some things that they threw up some red flags, because there was only female representation. I only saw what I assumed was mothers and aunties and sisters, um, and again we come to the second proceeding, the second juvenile hearing, and it's the same thing. Like, okay, I see mom and grandmother and sisters and aunties, and again I'm just assuming who these women were, but it it kind of answered my why question, because that's all I really wanted God to keep me from, first of all, killing this boy, and I wanted God to keep me sane. I wanted to know why uh, we were in this position, right? So hang on one second. Okay, there we go. So it dawned on me then, like, okay, this boy's problem um, is lack of male representation and lack of the proper messages, right? And um, and at no point at this time did I, come into a place of did I come into a place of forgiveness or anything, but I entered into a place of understanding. I entered into a place of understanding. Like, at least I knew that this boy just didn't know better. He didn't know any better. So therefore, I understood from my position, I either had to become part of the solution in creating solutions or complain about the problem and have to have the next father or the next family deal with what my family or myself had to deal with. So as we go back and forth to the hospital, and I'm talking about from the court to the hospital, because me and my wife, we never left the hospital. But again, as we go through rehab with Camden, she starts having a attempt to walk, and to watch a 13-year-old in diapers, and she had to have the left side of her skull completely removed in order to let her brain swell, and the drainage, and so she's in a helmet and she's confined to a bed, and like I said, having to be changed and be in a diaper. It was the most difficult space that my family, but me as a father, it was difficult not to feel like I was inadequate because I hadn't taken vengeance, or I hadn't gone out and or I wasn't seeking retribution. But also it gave me great confidence to see my family and my children react to react to my leadership. And we always hear about it, as being the general consensus of, you the head of the house and you the leader, this, that, and the third. But at the same time, until that thing has to be put in action, you never know, what it feels like to have to deal with that sort of thing. So, man, like I say, just to hear, maybe 9 or 10 days later, man, just to hear my daughter's voice, she spoke to one of my cousins. She started to lift herself up and recognize who we were and what was going on. But for me, that's when the movement really started. That's when the father figure movement started, just from my perspective as a father, and then the perspective of understanding why we were there. So at that particular point, I started to I was journaling the whole time we were there. So in my journal, man, I started to really understand where we were in society, as far as not having those father figures, not having those messages, not having our fathers, just biological, active and present in these children's lives, man. So that really is what birthed the father figure movement in itself, is because I feel like we are all responsible. That's biological fathers. That's whoever is considered a father figure. It's our responsibility to convey those messages. And I'll give everybody an update on Camden, give everybody an update on both of my kids, but we'll just kind of pause on her part and just kind of give you what the movement, our definition of a father figure, so we can kind of, once we go forward, we understand who we're talking about. Our definition of a father figure is a significant and present male role model, one who inspires, motivates, prays, disciplines, uplifts, protects, provides, etc. A male that demonstrates accountability, leadership, integrity, versatility, and consistency. The second definition is telling you exactly some of the entities that we're speaking to. We're speaking to fathers, stepfathers, grandfathers, brothers, uncles, boyfriends, cousins, coaches, pastors, teachers, community leaders, mentors, etc. Because of course our mission is to help aid in the curing of absenteeism of biological fathers. But until we do that, it is all of our responsibility to convey those messages. It's all of our responsibility to make sure that children understand and see what manhood looks like. There's no excuse for any of us to be out here. Again, I'm a barbershop owner, so if I see as many single mothers come in my shop as I do, and I don't take it upon myself to be a father figure to those young men, a father figure to um, really to that mother who may not understand, respect, or look at father figures in the right light, it is my responsibility to educate both of them on what the messages of a father or a father figure looks like. Again, the movement is about creating a bridge for that gap. Again, and we still are encouraging biological fathers to be present and to be active. But I think sometimes we generalize absenteeism. We generalize it with deadbeat or just being inactive. But you got to understand there are a lot of men that are dying early. There are a lot of men who may be in situations where they're handicapped or come down with anything. The cancer is still, everything is inclusive in our responsibility, because we can't really worry about why we need to convey those messages. We just need to understand that we need to convey them. And again, the solutions that we have to create in the context of making sure that children, most importantly, but there are a lot of women out there that don't understand, because think about it. If I grew up in a household that didn't have a mother, I grew up in a household that didn't have a grandmother, didn't have many messages that came from women, I would either have a disdain or I would just be uneducated on what a woman looks like or what womanhood looks like. And that's what we are dealing with a lot of times, is that it's not just the child, it's also the mother, it's also the grandmother, it's also the sister, the aunties or whoever it is that don't understand necessarily what or how important that father figure is, you know, and that's where the movement is attempting to again bridge that gap. Because for me, I know unequivocally, if there's somebody in that space, my daughter does not have to go through 2 brain surgeries and a stroke and learning how to read and write. And at the time that my daughter was assaulted, she had just won defensive player of the year on the basketball team. She was one of the top 3 players in her district. She, it's not just um, about the messages being heard. It's about conveying them in a sense where um, anybody in this summit should be able to tell a young man, like, man, look, we don't do that to females. We don't do that to girls. Like, even if you're thinking about that, you're 100% wrong. You're out of order. Um, and just that, even like I said, if that same young man comes in my barbershop and I hear that, it's my job to tell him, because I can save that young lady. I can save that person that he is thinking about stabbing in the head with a pair of scissors. Um, and back to Camden, as we started to go through rehab, and as we uh, started getting our victory, started getting her ability to do things um, that we thought she probably would never be able to do. When you're speaking with brain trauma, or when you're speaking on brain trauma or a brain injury, you never know the extent of the damage. And people can try to give you, their diagnosis, and the neurosurgeons can tell you, damage on the left side, this, that, and the third. But again, we are faith-based people. Like, we were not accepting any natural diagnosis again. But even in the rehab unit, I saw how the nurses and the the therapists would react to me even being there. Every day it would be like, like, wow, Dad, like, we don't see many like you. Or, as I'm watching her in the unit go through physical therapy and speech therapy and occupational therapy, I'm the only dad in there watching. Or it's this unit probably had 40 rooms, and out of the 40 rooms, man, it would be me and this and one other dad that I would see all the time. But all of the rooms were full. All of the rooms were full. And that's why, I said, from both ends, it just made sense. It made sense that, even if I wasn't there, and in the makeup of my village and my family, even if I wasn't there, I knew my dad was gonna be there, or my uncles were gonna be there, or my friends, or whoever. One thing that we didn't have to worry about was that male representation for my daughters, for myself, for my wife, for my entire family. But for other families, man, I saw zero male representation. I would never, ever, ever want to deal with um, what we had to deal with. But from my perspective and a fathering perspective, I would never in a million years want to have to show up to that rehab unit or to that hospital as a visitor. Uh, and that's what I saw a lot of times. Or just, you know, there was no representation. I saw many of kids, man. My baby had her sweet neighbors, and they're showing every day. She had a daily regimen of rehab. And in that rehab, in that regimen, it was 8 hours a day. Again, she could not walk, she could not talk. My baby was so discouraged. You're talking about a 13-year-old that could not read kindergarten words, is, and, the, up, down, and to not be represented in that space. There's no way I could ever even imagine it. But for this young man, that's the only place for me that allowed me to um, even visit forgiveness. And the movement and the creation of the apparel, my podcast, everything was created because, and they always say forgiveness is not for the person that you're forgiving, it's for yourself. That's an example of why the movement was created also, and the extension of the movement, um, because I had to create a space where I could kind of silence those thoughts, or silence, um, not wanting to. Even to this day, man, we're 2 years later, and I still have to suppress the thoughts of should I have done something to this little boy? Should I have made it clear that um, you don't, you don't, you don't do that to my kids? But in the context of everything, and just kind of give you a 2 minute So Camden and Kennedy, both of my, and right, and that's what I get. A lot of men. Anytime we have our forums or we speak on Zoom, most men are saying that exact comment, like, "Man, I don't know what I would have done," and none of us do. None of us do. I'm on this side, but I didn't know what I was going to do on the other side. I was just like anybody else in this meeting. But Camden and Kennedy, man, are doing well. Camden, um, like I said, we rehab, we bounced back, we her walking came back, talking came back. Uh, Eventually, her right arm, right leg, everything. But uh, man, it was a battle. It was a battle, and not only battle physically, but mentally and spiritually and emotionally. It was a battle. Um, and that's why the areas that the movement is trying to attack are those areas that are attacking. Even when you're present, you don't have to be perfect. My daughter was in the hospital for almost 3 months, and by no means can I tell you in those 3 months I was a perfect father. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is that I was present every day. And those are the things that are those are the things that drive the movement. They drive conversations like this because there are there are a lot of families, there are a lot of there are a lot of women, but most importantly, there are a lot of children that deserve better from us. And that's why my movement is called the Father Figure Movement. It's not called the Father Movement, and I am a father. I'm a proud father, but I'm not um, just a proud father. I'm a proud uncle. I'm a proud.
Hey, can I just chime in and say something real quick, man? Don't mean to cut you off. I
Go
just
ahead,
want
Doc.
I just wanted to let you know, like, how much your testimony is blessing me right now. And we thank you for sharing your story. And it's a tremendous uh real heavy thing to go through. And I have two daughters. I have two daughters as well. And so I'm imagining putting myself in. I'm like the other guys. I'm like, I don't know what I would have done. But as men, society expects tries to teach men, okay, you have to retaliate in a certain way, or you have to respond in a certain way when it comes to those types of situations. But that's not what takes the most strength. You know what I mean? How you responded to the situation, that's true strength right there. That's real strength. And it extends it extends way beyond you and your family, because God has given you the ability to take that energy and turn it into something that's going to affect society in a positive way. So I just wanted to commend you for that and say thank you for sharing your story, man.
And I appreciate the insight, man, just because a lot of times, and again, spiritually, man, that's why you know that there's no coincidence. We are on this end of what happened, but I truly know for me and my family, man, it was really given to us as a gift. You know what I'm saying? Um what essentially was what anybody would consider a curse, was considered that weapon formed against you biblically, man. But um I truly believe that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. You know what I'm saying? And those things, and again, tragedy is a great word, man. But I think from most tragedy, there is triumph, and that's what the movement, that's what this space is about. Even the man in me space, man, is man. I'm just honored, man. I'm listening to the cats earlier. I'm listening to a lot of gumbo ingredients, man, that all men can take out of this thing, including myself. But I know for me, the father figure representation is what I was supposed to receive from our tragedy. My daughters and my wife, they all have their testimonies, but me as a man and me as a father, um, it's still difficult. Again, I heard some. I was in a what is the and I can't even think, mental health. I was in one of the mental health rooms earlier, and that's what space I have to be in sometimes, because it's still mentally unhealthy to deal with that as a father. Man, a 15-year-old little boy assaulted my baby, almost killed my baby. You know, I think one of our top jobs, man, as fathers, is to protect our kids. And there's nothing I could do. There's nothing I couldn't have not dropped them off at school, but I still wanted to feel like, man, I could protect my babies. And that's tough. That's tough on any man. But um, to kind of wrap things up, man, the the movement is really about affecting three areas, and they're the three main areas that all of us as father figures can contribute. First and foremost, that's in our families, and that's not necessarily saying biological father. Again, man, I'm as active with my nieces as I am with my girls. I'm as active with the kids that come in my shop, um, and that's my extended family, because my business is we all family. And that's the number one area that we're trying to affect as in the movement. Number two, we're trying to affect our communities, because, i.e., again, my barbershop is a community entity, and 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 I think our messages are more prevalent in areas like that than anywhere. Again, the kids and the people that we come in contact with in our communities, we owe them those messages. We owe them, showing them what uh, fathers and father figures and men looks like. Again, my wife is an educator, and I was just thinking about it as I was going over my notes. If you go to 99% of schools in this country, um, 99% of the staff is female. So a lot of those messages and a lot of those children are still lacking that male representation, even when they go off to school and when they go off, and that's no slight to the female teachers or the mothers or anything, but there's still a void. There's still a need for that message in our communities and our schools and our, our places that our kids are at as much as they at home, like, think about it, man. Our kids are at school or at daycare or at wherever they're at as much as they are at home, if not more. And again, that's where community comes in, and then from a humanitarian standpoint, man, I hear Miles Monroe say all the time, if the man goes, then the family goes. If the family goes, the community goes, and if the community goes, then the globe goes. And that's what um, even as father figures, we have to understand that that's just the way it goes, whether we want to accept that responsibility or not. Um, those are the things that are just real. That's part of the fabric and the foundation of humanity. Not just the United States, not just, that's just how everything is structured. Um, and I always quote a scripture. Um, thank you to my wife. Thank you, baby. Um, I quote a scripture out of Malachi 4, 5, and 6, and it says that we should turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children and the children's hearts back to the fathers. Least the Lord will unleash a curse on the land. And a lot of what we're doing with the movement is about reversing that curse or not experiencing that curse, because we don't respect or represent that fatherhood or that father figure piece. And even in scripture, sometimes women think you speaking chauvinistic or you being arrogant, but look, the book says turn the father's hearts to the children and the children's hearts back to the father. And that's because, again, that foundation and that structure is set based on the way the creator wanted humanity to operate, not the way that Reggie and the father figure movement want things to operate. So those are the areas, man, family, community, humanity, that we're really trying to affect, man. And we do that through, we've created the Fathers Forum. Again, we just started underway on our Reverse the Curse Men's Conference, the podcast, the apparel. We have accountability calls, man. We are just trying to be an advocate for fathers and father figures and changing that narrative even in our own minds. A lot of us don't consider ourselves father figures because we don't have biological children, but that could be no further from the truth. Because again, like I said, coaches, mentors, teachers, and everybody, man, there's a lot of non-biological men who are father figures to a lot of people, adults and children. So again, man, I'm a wrap up. That's my time. If y'all have any questions, shoot them at me, man. We'll answer. And I appreciate everybody for tapping in. I apologize for getting a little caught up, but like I say, when we talking about things that are sensitive, they sensitive, you know. Uh, so if we got any questions, anything, anybody chime in? I don't know if I have to unmute y'all or y'all can unmute yourself.
For me, man, I just want to say thank you for sharing. I was trying to figure out words to even say the whole time. I was just trying to figure out, because again, I guess what Ronnie was talking about was, I have daughters as well, and like to see them, to go through that, I would just, when you were speaking, it would just hit me all in my chest, and I was just like, I don't know what I would do. And I kept, thinking that when you talked about how, we're sending our kids to school, right? I didn't know it was gonna affect me like this. So this is kind of interesting. I didn't know it was gonna do it to me like this. But I was like, we send our school to kid, to school, want them to get a good education. And if we're, and we're paying for the school, private school or charter school, and you expect to protect them, but we're releasing them to other individuals, and it kind of, it's just like, how do you like still continue to, because I think I would live in fear if that at that point. Like I'm homeschooling, would I shelter them now? Would I completely shut down? How does the family dynamic, change and shift now in the home, versus them interacting with other kids? Just like, don't be around other kids. You know what I'm saying? So I think, I don't know what I would do on that. That's all I'm saying. I'm like, I think I would overreact in a whole completely different type of way and shut down shop. And so it's just interesting. I don't know how like anyone else feels that when we're releasing our kids, to the school system, and we're doing like something, literally they could break an arm, they get, get a little cut, get a little ding, like, kids pinched them, something like that, stabbed with a pencil. That's at least what I got stabbed with a little pencil. But to get stabbed with some scissors at the degree of that is a lot. Like, cut my hair, do something funny like that. She cut my hair, or, did pull my hair, it came out, or, pour bleach on me, something of that nature, but never to think of like, I'm sending them to school and it's not that she fell and, hurt himself on the thing and, from climbing up something or doing something, or came down the hoop and then she fell, hit her, landed wrong, broke something. It was literally someone else causing harm on someone, on my daughter. And how do I feel like that? How do I feel about that, knowing that I gotta send my kids to school? So I don't know, what am I trying to like process, is like, how do you continue to bring your children into the space where you can't protect them? I don't know if anybody else understand my question. I'm trying, like, if anybody has that, but like,
I completely understand, man, because again, that's what I and Tiffany, show the girls, turn the camera on. I literally, and my girls, my girls will tell you that they know my speeches, and they know, and there they go. They know my speeches, and they know what I'm saying when they leave the house. Again, man, we're talking about teenagers that it's hard for me to let them go to their friends' birthday parties and go to these little event centers. But more than that, man, like you say, you still have to release them to a school system that we are taught to trust. We are taught to think that's a safe space. And we've also heard that, oh, anything can happen and this, that, but people don't know how to react to anything really happen. When that thing really happens, and it will speak about that when that thing really happens, that's where the PTSD kicks in. We are 2 years out, man. And my wife will tell you, man, like I'm still overreactionary when it comes to the space that I want my kids in, and the safety and the covering that I want them. I really want to, it's hard to release my now 15-year-olds to the 15-year-old world. And that's exactly what you're speaking to, man. It is tough, because you think once we get out the hospital and once things get better, like, oh, we like, nah, man, that's when the real fight kicks in, because we're fathers, and man, protecting our kids, and especially our daughters, is something, man, that that thing got shaken up, man, but we on the rebound. We on the rebound, man. I appreciate you, bro.
yeah, I always feel like you feel so powerful. Like as a father, I feel like I'm so powerful, and in what's inside of me, right? But then I'll power less and I can't do anything. And so when you were
Right.
speaking, I was like, you couldn't do anything. Like you
Nothing.
couldn't, as men, we kind of like try to fix things. Like I can fix it, what we need, even though we don't know what we're doing, we're gonna try to figure out how we need to fix it, or whatever the case may be. It's like I can't fix this. Like I could only do my part. And I felt like when you said that it was important to not be perfect, but to be present. And I know you probably
Right.
think about a lot of stuff, but it's like that present part really hit home. It's like, no, I don't have to do anything but just be present. And it's almost, if to me, what I'm seeing when you were saying that was like being present and just loving them, what heals. That's what I was saying, like loving them, being present, what heals, that covers them in the sense. I don't know, because I'm not on that side, so I'm just projecting what I'm sensing and feeling right now, just based on your session, man. And that's all I have. I'm just going. I know we going to end the session, but I just want it got me, so I'm still over here trying to get myself together. So thank you, sir. I really appreciate you.
Man, I appreciate you, brother. And that's a testimony and a testament in itself, man, is that again, I know the God piece of this is exactly what you're speaking to, man. Is we all got to hear these testimonies, and again, like I said, I was in the mental health space earlier, and some things that can help me still navigate through what I'm dealing with, man, is what the Man in Me Summit is about, man. And I appreciate y'all, just because I hope I'm being a help, but the whole summit itself, man, is amazing, man. And I appreciate you, brothers, bro.
All right, we want
So
to take this time to thank Mr. Reggie George. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your message, and providing the knowledge and the wisdom. And I'm definitely going to take a lot of things and lessons that you taught and try to enact them in my life and other young men that I come in contact with, because it does take a village, especially when it comes to being a father or a father figure. So thank you, sir. So
I appreciate you guys.
So at this time, I want to remind everybody to complete the session survey for this session. And if you haven't already, I believe you can still complete surveys for previous sessions you've attended as well. And let me see. So Isaac, are they, let me go ahead and end the recording.